you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys always being here. For 16 years, 2,000 episodes, we bring in all the smartest people, the brilliant minds, all the people who can change your life, who bring to us their stories, their journeys, their cathartic moments of life, and all the things that they can do that when you listen to them, you just walk around with the Chris Voss Show glow going, oh my gosh, how did you ever get so smart? People, they just see you just glowing, wandering around, and they're just like, how can it be like you? And you're like, go listen to the Chris Voss Show. There's so much stuff there. It's like the Netflix of podcasting, really, when you think about it. People are the sum of all their stories, as I like to say, that they've collected on their journey through life, and stories are the fabric of who we are. So we're going to get into more stories today. We've got an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking to him. He is the author of the newest book that just came out on November 28th, 2023, Life Mastery, Life by Design, Not by Default. I've tried that default business, and it doesn't turn out well. Mark W. Collins is on the show with us today. We'll be talking to him about his book. He is a husband, father, pastor, and coach with a passion to see Christian men equipped to be the hero God created them to be. He has authored the first book we aforementioned, and he's developed and launched his Life Mastery online courses and has had the privilege of speaking at conferences throughout the Western U.S. In over 15 years of working with men as a Christian coach and pastor, Mark has seen hundreds of lives changed and callings unleashed. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
We're happy to have you as well. Give us your .coms or .nets, wherever people can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that I have, you can find on our website, which is freedom-for-life.net. Freedom for life with a dash between the four, so freedom-for-life.net.
There you go. Free at last. So give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside your new book, Life Mastery, Life by Design, Not by Default.
Yeah, just like the title says, the honest truth is, at least for the Christian perspective and in my own life as well, you find that a lot of times we live our life by default. And it's not because it's any fault of our own. It's because it's kind of how we've been raised and the only thing we know. So life by default kind of looks like this. It's life happens and I respond, right? The car has a flat tire. I lose my job, having issues in the family, whatever, right? All of the good and the bad and everything in between. Life happens. And in many cases, we feel like we're not ready until it happens, and then we'll respond to it. What I believe God's call is on our life, and what I try and train up the men and the women that I have the opportunity to walk with and work with, I want to make them aware that, hey, you're meant to live life by design, which means that, sounds like a cliche, but we are the response that life is supposed to happen to, right? We're supposed to be the ones who are happening to our life, not letting our life happen to us. It's life by offense, not by defense, not to be offensive, but to actually have the life that you're created for.
There you go. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I almost screwed that up. Like George Bush. Like George Bush going, I remember the gaffes he had about when he would try and say something. If you have one bird in the hand or something like that, I remember. But yeah, so, I mean, people need to realize that, a lot of people, I remember, if I can go on a little tangent here, I remember growing up listening to Pink Floyd's The Wall. Or not, it wasn't The Wall, it was The Dark Side of the Moon. And one of those lines in The Dark Side of the Moon is about how you missed the starting gun. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. Yeah. And kind of now you're behind the 8 ball, or you're behind on the marathon that's life. And I always remember that line stuck with me. And I realized that a lot of people do that. They sleepwalk through life. Yeah. And they just kind of take whatever's handed to them. And then they wake up one day, and I was kind of interesting because I'd heard people around me complaining as a young man about men who had midlife crises, and I was always like, "What's that about?" And how all men have this? What's the issue there? And a lot of men, they jump into the roles that society gives them, and then they wake up one day and they go, wow, maybe this wasn't for me. And I think women do too. Maybe that's the reason people divorce more. But, I think women and men both do it. And they just kind of go, I saw it on TV. I always use the example from Fight Club where they're sitting in the bathroom and Brad Pitt's in the tub, and he goes, I don't know, my dad just said, go to college. And I went to college, and they said, what do I do now, Dad? Go get a job. And what do I do now, Dad? Go get married. It's like life's just kind of handed to you in this preformed things. But if you follow by default, you might not be happy with the results you get.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And obviously the thing that I try to instill in the guys that I work with is that, there is a design for your life. There is a purpose for your life, an impact that you're supposed to have. And like you said, Chris, there's a lot of cases where we're looking at the world to tell us, or, the norms of society, right? So my family is in this industry, so of course I have to be in this industry or whatever. You look outside of yourself to try and find those things to kind of fulfill you, or to kind of give you importance or give you really value. At the end of the day, I think for every man, myself included, you want to know that you're valued. And so you either look at it outwards or you look at it inward. And if you start from the inward, understanding your value before you walk into it, I think you're a lot closer to living that life by design and having no midlife crisis, maybe being able to see that, hey, I lived out the impact I was supposed to have in the world.
Definitely. And I chose the life I wanted to live.
Yeah.
One of the things I did with my life is I designed it because I was like, I don't want to have a midlife crisis. Yeah. I don't want to wake up someday and go, I'm different. There's another reason men have a midlife crisis is because usually it takes us 25 years to build ourselves. When we usually start out, our value, especially on the dating sexual market, is zero. Because we don't have anything. We don't have any skills. Women date up to people that are more successful. I remember going through that as a young man. I remember being a sophomore in high school where, you wanted to date fellow sophomores, and they're like, no, we need seniors because they have cars and jobs and going someplace.
Yeah.
And so men usually peak in their value and their highest earning potentials and resources that we normally bring to the dating market value in our late 40s and 50s. Our 50s are actually our best times. And, until then, we're struggling to build a kingdom. We're struggling to build ourselves. We're struggling to build a career, provide for a family. And a lot of guys wake up at that point and they have a midlife crisis because they're like, hey, I finally have value and I know it. So there's something to that. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you grow up? Did you grow up in religion, or did you find it later? And what were some of the influences there that got you down your road?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. You could say we grew up in a Christian religion. My dad was in the military. If you want to know a little snapshot of my life from the time I was born until 6th grade, which means 12 years old for me, we lived in 5 states and 1 foreign country because my dad was in the military. So we moved a lot. So that means every 2 years of my life, from being born all the way through the 6th grade, I was in a new location, new friends, new community, new traditions, all of the things that go along with that. And so growing up at that point, we were going to church. In the military, they have churches on base, and my dad wanted to have us go there. He was a Christian. He became a Christian later in life, in his late 20s, actually, which is interesting. It's interesting because that's when I accepted Christ as well. So we grew up in church, but really didn't have that kind of relationship that made it worth going or wanting to continue. So in the 6th grade, my dad said, hey, you guys are old enough, me and my 3 sisters, you make your own choice. Do you want to go, or do you not want to go? And I don't know if it coincided with him kind of getting tired of going every Sunday as well. But the minute we decided we weren't going to go, he stopped going as well. So Fast forward through that, fun fact about me, at least for the people that know me now, when I was in my early 20s, I was going to college, really kind of dissatisfied where I was at, and I decided I was going to go to California. I had a friend who played bass and knew some people who had some musical talent or something like that, and I figured I was going to come out to California and be a rock star. Came out here, lived the life. I remember the very second place we stayed at. It was a garage, and it wasn't a garage like you're thinking, converted garage, nice place. It was a literal garage that had all of the stuff in it, plus a couch that we got to share. So every night we would flip a coin to decide who got the couch and who got the cushions off the couch. Wow. And I remember the front of the garage door would be open because they had a cat. And so they didn't want their cat to have to be outdoors. So literally year round, that garage door was open about 1.5 feet off the bottom. So it was, That was my very first living conditions when I came to California.
Man, I thought LA was hard now, but it sounds like it was hard back then too.
I guess it's hard depending on your friends and where you're living, right?
That's true. But, there's a lot of things that came out of garages in California sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were the band in the garage, but we weren't a garage band.
This would be a title of your next book.
There you go.
There you go. Maybe some stories you can tell off that spin.
Absolutely. Living a lot of life, skipping through a lot of it. I met my wife when I was in my mid-20s, and she had 2 children. I tell people that when I married her, I married into a family. She had a son who was 9, EJ, and Nicole, who was 5 years old when I met her. And so we got married, and we wanted to raise our kids in kind of a healthy, moral environment. And I remembered back to my Christianity. And I wanted to kind of give my children that background as well. And, one thing led to another. We started going to church, and I was around a group of individuals in a business that I was in at the time. And I really liked what I saw in them that I didn't have in myself, the peace and the joy and some of the things that I didn't have. Part of my journey and part of what I do and really trying to move men towards what I consider the life that they're created for is starting to unpack some of the understanding that a lot of times the life we're living now is the sum total of our experiences, our past, our pains, and the things that people have said about us. And you talked about men, and it's, my group that I really have an involvement with. And what I see in men is what I saw in myself when I was growing up, which was not feeling like I measured up to my father, who was strong, tough, amazing, everything that I felt like I wasn't. And growing up into my life, whether it was starting a business and being successful, going to college and being able to get my degree, even getting a second-degree black belt for the simple reason that I wanted to be a tough guy like my father was.
Yeah.
And so you kind of grow up, and even in your successes, finding that feeling of inadequacy or imposter syndrome or fear of failure, whatever the label is you want to put on it, those were the things that I had. And unfortunately for some of us guys, part of that outworking is when you don't feel good enough in yourself, some of the outworking of that is anger and frustration and those things that really stress relationships, which obviously was part of our relationship, mine with my wife as well. Mm-hmm. So I was that guy. But I saw these people that they didn't have that kind of angst or anger or those kind of things. They didn't seem to have those inner demons and wrestling when you were worried about, am I going to keep my job? Successful in the things I did, but still the thoughts were, okay, the failure is just around the corner. You're really not as good as you think you are, those kind of things.
Yeah, sabotage.
So, yeah, exactly. And so walking through it, first and foremost, wanting to have what they had, and what they all had in common was they were all Christians. Wow. And so one Sunday, they have what's called an altar call, which means the pastor or the leader up front says, hey, if anybody wants to accept Jesus, come forward. I looked to my wife and I said, I've got to go. And I walked up, and that was the start of that part of the journey, which brought me back to my Christian faith.
There you go. And so you found some of the stuff you talk about in the book at that moment then. Yeah.
And previous to that, I was always believing that there was more for my life than what I was living. That being frustrated and anger and waking up at 3 a.m. when they had our business, just wondering if you can make payroll, and oh my gosh, if the money doesn't come in, then what are we going to do? Those kind of things. I always felt that there was more than that I was supposed to be living. And so for me, it was personal development early on, which was Tony Robbins. And you could name them. Anything I could get for free or cheap, I would grab a hold of, because I wanted to be better than the person that I was seeing in the mirror. Yeah. And then how Christianity got wrapped into that is starting to not just read the Bible and not just use it as great philosophy and, great ideas, but to actually see that there's instruction there. And in seeing the instructions in there, and one scripture that I think about is, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. It's a man warning a reader about a rich person who's acting very generous on the outside, but inside he's being deceptive. Mm. But in seeing that truth, I understood what a lot of people understand in their lives as well, which is this. So if my thoughts led me to the life I'm living right now, then if I change my thoughts, then maybe I can change the person that I see walking out the life that I'm living.
There you go.
And so different instructions like that really were foundational and kind of that roadmap, right? There's always that great thing. And that was the challenge I had with a lot of personal development. It's like, follow me and then you can be perfect like I am, or you can be wealthy, or whatever the thing is that they're telling you to do. Yeah. And more power to them for the things that they're accomplishing. But sure. On the inside, I knew I wasn't them.
Yeah. And you're still that work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was never going to, I'm never going to be Tony Robbins. There's only one. And if you're ever an imitation of somebody else, you're always going to be in second place.
Yeah, he's a massive man, and I'm 6 foot tall with a 10 inch span hand. And I remember meeting him in 1989. This is when you could just walk up to him at the end of his seminars.
Yeah.
And I remember putting my hand into his hand to shake it, and my hand, I just watched it slowly disappear. And I have a giant hand. Like most people, it's the other way. Like people disappear into my hand.
Yeah.
And he was just a giant of a man and just welcoming and warm and stuff. But I remember watching my hand just go into his giant hand, and I was like, "Holy crap!" And you've got to make your own path. You got to find your own purpose. You got to do what you want to do in life. And sometimes following those gurus. And I'm not. Tony Robbins changed my life, and I didn't have to go to 20 seminars. I just read the book and listened to tapes, I think. But you have to find your own purpose in life. That thing that resonates with you, that makes you want to get up every day and do something. And I think a lot of guys get confused because they think if I just get a woman and I get a family, then that will give me purpose. Yeah. And then things don't work out with the woman, and which happens many times, which we see in society, and then they're destroyed because their whole identity and everything is built around that. And usually the reason the woman left is because the man wasn't on his purpose. He was following her like a puppy dog everywhere. Happy wife, happy life. That's shit.
Yeah.
She can't respect him if he doesn't respect himself. I mean, that's kind of how women work. That's
a great word. That's the truth.
I should put that on a cup. So give us maybe some other tools maybe that you can tease out that you put in your book on how people can upgrade their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things is exactly what you talked about, which is that word identity. I tell people all the time that if I don't have a tattoo, but if I had a tattoo, it would be this: identity is everything. Mm-hmm. Because exactly what you had said. So if I understand who I am, then everything else benefits in my life, my spouse, my friends, my work, because I know who I am, and I'm not trying to have you make up for it. Mm-hmm. But in a place where you don't feel adequate, or you don't feel valued, or you don't feel good enough on your own, then everybody around you that you're in a relationship with has to make up the difference. And like you said with marriage, right?
Yeah.
Where if I don't feel adequate in myself, then my wife's name is Susan. Susan has to make up the difference because I don't feel good. So she has to make sure that I'm okay. I don't say that, but I feel that. And that's kind of part of the internal dialogue in the relationship and the wrestling. Is because, and whatever it is. And we know people like that. I don't want to name names, but people like I do, Chris, they're amazing in what they're doing in some areas, some vocation, whatever the thing is that they're doing in their life. And then there's another area of their life that's a disaster. Mm-hmm. And so what I tell the guys is, first off, identity is everything. Who you are is who will come out in the times of stress, in the times of working, and all the things that you're doing in your life. Who you believe you are, you'll become. Mm-hmm. And so our tools really come around the 3 transformational tools. It's mastering your thoughts, words, and actions. Mm-hmm. And so let's start with just thoughts, and I can just unpack that one for a moment. It literally is living out what we talked about in the title, living life by design, not by default. I used to work out and come to find out I was reading about different people that were, great in the athletics and all that. And I found out their nutrition was very interesting. They would eat before and after they worked out. Oh. Before, so that they'd fuel themselves for the workout; afterwards, so that they would recover. Mm-hmm. In my own life with my group of folks, the Christians, or even just any of us in general, we're always fighting the battles after they've started. But if you prepare ahead of time, again, if you prepare your thoughts so that you understand who you are walking into it, you're not expecting your circumstances to tell you who you are. So I'm at my business and we're having some struggles because there's less enrollment, there's less students, there's less income. So we're trying to deal with those issues and those challenges. Mm-hmm. If each of those circumstances are another chance for me to hear that I'm a failure, or that I'm going to blow it, or that we're going to be bankrupt, now all of a sudden you have the stress of your anxiety and your worry and all these things that are happening, not just disempowering emotions. They're also ways that you're being stifled from the creativity it takes to succeed and to be able to overcome them. Mm-hmm. But if I know that I'm the answer to every challenge that I'm walking into, that I have solutions and I have ideas and I have things that I could do at any moment to be able to turn around any circumstance, now all of a sudden that guy walking into the circumstance, now all of a sudden he gets answers, he's got understanding, he knows where to grab finances from, he knows where to manipulate and challenge and change things so that his work and his life and his business continue to thrive. The difference between a man who's fulfilled and a man who's struggling in a lot of cases really comes down to who they believe they are walking into it. It's not the skill set, it's the character of the man. And it doesn't mean that a man who's struggling has no character. It just means that he doesn't understand the character that he has. So one of our tools is mastering your thoughts. Who do you say that you are? And I'm not telling you to say it when my wife and I are fighting, when we're struggling at work, but hey, who do you remind yourself of? And so part of our exercise is I start every morning with this, understanding who I am and reminding myself of it, because during the day, my life is going to tell me who I am. And if I don't have ammunition of the truth of who I am, right, truth destroys lies, then all of a sudden now I'm into an arm wrestling match and an anxiety time and imposter syndrome and all of those things. But if I know who I am walking in, because I've fed myself on the truth of who I am, now all of a sudden that guy shows up and answers shows up and overcoming shows up and victory in those areas shows up in your life simply because you are the person walking into it that you thought you were.
You are the person you thought you were. And that makes all the difference. And like I think you mentioned coaches or Olympic stuff earlier. We've had people from the Olympics on the show, coaches for the Olympics. And and I think this is done in a lot of different athletic fields, but they will use the power of the belief system, as you say, in themselves, but they'll also do that visualization where they see themselves walking into the Super Bowl. They see what the gameplay is. I was even watching Tom Brady, a Raiders fan, so it's hard to watch. But, I mean, the guy is the GOAT. And he was talking about how his prep for the game every week preps for everything. It preps for, he knew what the temperatures were, what exactly he needed to wear to stay perfectly warm, but not too warm or too, wrapped up. He would talk about how they would go through the playbook of what the plan of what the games were going to be, or the different downs are going to be and what they were going to do. And he would sit down with his backup quarterback. They would go through the whole plan, and then he would bounce as they would practice the plan. He would bounce off, what happens if this guy comes in over here? Have we planned for that? And people are like, no, that's just the plan. And,
right.
And he'd be like, let's consider that might happen. And he played the game enough to know that, those random things are going to happen. Yeah. And it was really interesting to watch him talk about how he planned everything out and he practiced everything out. And the meticulous nature, because people would just be like, I know the game plan. I'll just show up and it'll be fine. I know game. I know, move X, Y, Z or whatever the call out is. But he would sit and go through it, and then he kind of consider its weak points and things that he needed to be thinking about in the moment. That like, what if something comes out of left field here and is pushing me? Yeah. And so you're right. Planning is everything. Putting the game in your head. What are some other tips that maybe we can tease out?
And that's one of them that you talked about already, visualization, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a difference between, I'll just say, other programs and what we try and do. The reason I start with identity is because I start with the reality of who you are. A lot of times what we try and do, and I even try to do this in my own life, right? You pick the epitome of whatever. If it's a creativity, it's an Elon Musk, or if it's music, maybe it's Pink Floyd, great band, right? And so you visualize yourself becoming that person. At the end of the day, you already understand you're not them. But if I can understand who I'm created to be, I tell the guys that I work with, you can't hit a target that you can't see. And that's what visualization is. But it's visualization of who I am, the fullness of who I'm created to be lived out. And so you start with that identity statement. You create those thought processes so that I'm prepared for battle before the fight. Yeah. Once I get in the fight, it's a little too late to be prepared. Again, Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that. I'm thinking of a battle warrior too.
Exactly.
Going to war, preparing for a fight.
You better not try and learn to fight after you're already in it. If so, you're probably going to lose. And so it is the visualization, but it's a visualization of the ultimate reality in your life. Who am I lived out? And so when you see that person lived out, and the other thing is, if I could just be totally honest with some guys, I also give them this exercise, and it's twofold. It's an accomplishment list and it's a celebration list. What I find in my own life, and maybe you too, Chris, but certainly some other guys as well, is we wait to get the trophy to celebrate what we're doing. And what happens is, if you can't celebrate yourself along the way, many times you'll stop short of your victory because, I can't until I win the Super Bowl, I won't recognize all of the accomplishments I did along the way. And so what I tell the guys is, I did a list of 100 accomplishments I've had in my life. It could be big or small. It could be, graduating from high school. It could be owning your first car, whatever the thing is. What we consider ordinary, everybody's not doing. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, what you do is you are able to maximize your faults and minimize your gifts when you start to look at it. As they say, we're our own critics sometimes. And so what I try and do is get a mind shift that says this: hey, you are already accomplishing things in your life, right? That lie that keeps telling you, now I'm going to fail or this is going to happen. You have a track record of success. So when those things are happening, you're already, again, you can't hit a target you don't see, visualizing who you are in your future. If you understand who you're created to be, you're not going to wait for a failure to prove that you're right. You're going to expect an accomplishment because I've got a track record of doing it.
There you go. And if you're giving yourselves the pat on the back for the small rewards, the small wins, we can go back to the football analogy again, or you can use game analogy. You mentioned the Super Bowl. Like, as you win games, you have to build confidence and go, hey, it was good. I won that game. Good job. Yeah. Or, I lost this game. Okay, how can I be better? And, then you're going to win the, eventually you win the top of your FC, all that stuff, the top of your region. I forget the term.
Your conference?
I'm a Raiders fan, so I don't know.
Division, your conference.
I don't know what it's like to win divisions anymore, so I've forgotten the terms. It's rough life. But so your division and then the the AFC conference, and you've got to celebrate those wins. Like, hey, we did a great job. We won this. Yeah. So we have the ability to get to the Super Bowl and win. We've proven ourselves and we are worthy. Maybe worthy is a good word. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so. And if I could backtrack a little, because I think your analogy is really spot on. Because you think of it, you obviously watch football and in sports in general, but I'll take football for sure. They celebrate every touchdown. They celebrate every interception. They celebrate every takeaway. They don't wait till they get to the Super Bowl and now we're a team of value. Right now we're guys that have done something. And yet in our own lives, sometimes we're the hardest on ourselves. We refuse to celebrate just showing up. Because, who was it? Was Andy Warhol who said 90% of success is just showing up?
It really is. Yeah. Like I used to have employees used to ask me, like, what was successful? And I'm like, just showing up every day, even on the days you don't want to show up. And when you're an entrepreneur, there's a lot of days you don't want to show up, especially weekends and late at night. And, I remember I was like, why can't I go home at 5 o'clock and not think about all this crap I have to do? You live it. And, I used to dream business. Like some men dream of, some blonde haired girl on a beach. I would dream about who was going to fire the next day and the meetings I was going to have. And I had so many business dreams that if I ever thought of the girl on the beach, I'm like, thank God, oh my God, what a relief. I've had hundreds of these stupid business dreams. You just live it. And
for sure.
But you've got to show up every day. It's not, and half the time is just showing up and processing what the day is and being aware of where you're going and everything else. Let's talk about some of the packages that you offer on your website and I believe these are specifically designed for men, or are they open to everybody?
The truth and the principles work for anybody. But, my message is primarily for Christian men, because I understand, like maybe some other people do as well, that if your message is for everybody, your message is for nobody. And so it's a group. Obviously, it's my life and my history as well. So there's an ability to understand that group. But prior to really kind of focusing on Christian men, the program was open to everybody, men and women. And, women are obviously a great resource and great in courses like this, because it takes a level of honesty and vulnerability and willingness to change that women are naturally adept in doing. But you know what? I'm all in on the guys. I want to be able to give the tools to the men who are the me before, the guys who are looking for that roadmap, looking for that blueprint to get there. They want to change, but they just don't know how to get there. But if they can find that tool, they're all in and they're all ready to get going on it. So there's several tools that we have out there. One of them is Introduction to Freedom, and it really is understanding that, hey, you're more than the life you're living right now. Whatever your level of accomplishment is, it's interesting because I have these and hear these conversations with people of huge value and worth, right? Guys that are making hundreds of millions of dollars, and they talk about their business deals, and the literal words they use are, I still struggle with imposter syndrome. Anytime there's a big deal, I'm still wondering if I'm good enough or if I can do it. So it's interesting, right? I tell the guys, you can have a good life or you can have a God life, but you're never meant to have that life of limitation where struggle comes along with it. A lot of times we just tolerate things that we're supposed to be able to overcome and supposed to have victory, and we just don't know how to get there. So Introduction to Freedom is really that introduction of, hey, there's more than where you're at. Whatever your level of success, you don't have to drag along the insecurity, the issues, the challenges. You don't have to drag along this willingness to be great at my business, but horrible at my marriage. There's a place where you can actually be accomplished and fulfilled in every area. And so Introduction to Freedom helps people get there. And then there's the full-blown Life Mastery course and the Life Mastery book. The Life Mastery book I consider to be the quick start guide. Mm-hmm. It's the framework for all of the tools, the 3 areas of transformation, mastering your thoughts, words, and actions, the 4 pillars of life mastery, understanding identity, experience, meaning, and emotions, and how all of those wrap up into the life that you're living. Those are in the book as a quick start guide to really give you some nuggets, some tools to actually be able to live it out right away. And then for those guys that are interested in the full-fledged course, they're all in, they want the whole package, not just part of it. They want to invest themselves in getting from start to finish. That's what the Life Mastery course is for. And honestly, there's a free, I call it a discovery tool, but you could call it a diagnostic tool that I have on my website. And it's really just to say, hey, Life Mastery, living your life by design, not by default. What level am I at right now? And so there's 40 easy questions. You rate yourself 1 to 10 in each question. And at the end, there's an understanding of, okay, this is where I'm at, and this is how I can get to that next level. So it's just a really cool discovery tool for you to be able to say, hey, what's my next level in this?
There you go. The free diagnostic tool to determine your life mastery. And then, of course, people can sign up for your thing there. And then you've got a bonus teachings on life mastery. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so there's a whole Life Mastery course, and that is absolutely a full-fledged teaching and training. You can go from where you're at to free, right? Freedom is the goal, Life Mastery is the tool. But these Life Mastery bonus teachings are a deeper dive. What I tell people is this: Life Mastery, the course, is what you can use to master your life. The bonus teachings are what you can use to master life mastery, meaning you start to understand the in-depth things. You start, like you talked about, visualization is one of those teachings, and being able to say, hey, first off, have an accurate picture you're looking for and consistently look at it. Olympic athletes are a perfect example. I use that because they're an amazing example of people who are singularly focused on a goal and how it actually manifests itself in their lives. So there's several tools there. There's understanding the company you keep, right? The people you surround yourself with are going to determine to a great level the level of success you have and if you're going to succeed at all. And there's other teachings in there, but it gives you a deeper dive so that you not just have the course and be able to get through it, but now I really have a greater understanding. It's like a supercharging to the life mastery.
There you go. So this sounds quite insightful. You've got the book, you've got the tools and courses people can take and utilize. What maybe haven't we touched on that you want people to be aware of?
At the end of the day, I think the one thing I try and give people the understanding of is there's more for your life. Whatever level you're living, whatever accomplishments you have, or maybe you're that guy that's in your late 20s like I was, who is desperate to be better than the way that you are responding to the life that you're living. You want to believe there's more, but you just don't know how to kind of unpack it and get there. Well, it's not just these tools, but really it starts with an understanding of you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. There is more for your life, whether you're $100 million still struggling with imposter syndrome, got a marriage that's on the rocks and you want to be better, or you're that younger guy and you're saying, hey, I'd love to know how to get there. I feel like there's something, but I don't even know where to start. So know that you're right in what you're saying, and the next step is going to be the first step towards you seeing that lived out.
There you go. There you go. Mark, it's been wonderful to have you on. Give us a final pitch out for people to check out your book, your services, as we go out, and .coms.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be freedom-4-life.net. That's the website where you can see everything, including the free tool, freedom-4-life.net. We'd love to see you get out there and grab whatever level you're ready to be in. It's there for you.
There you go. Thank you very much, Mark, for coming on the show.
Thank you. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate it.
That's what we do. Thanks for my audience for being here. Order of the book where refined books are sold. Life Mastery by Design, or let me get this right. Life Mastery, Life by Design, Not by Default, out November 28th, 2023 by Mark W. Collins. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. If you want to buy me a coffee, go to buymeacoffee.com/Chris Voss. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.